I have been speaking about the importance of trust, of trustworthiness, of training in order to teach trust, legitimate trust, as a skill, and to teach trustworthiness also as a skill. I've been speaking about the importance, the utmost importance, in our world of training systems that make us trustworthy and make us able to trust that which is trustworthy. And I use this word a lot, and it's a subtle concept. A lot of the time, it's not easy to understand what could be meant by that. Why is being trustworthy so important? Why would someone say that it's the most important thing? Why would it be that in a society, trust is the most valuable resource? True, legitimate trust in trustworthy individuals and trustworthy institutions. Why would that be? If we see it that way, if we look at it that way, then what we're doing here, the training that we do here, the community that we've created here, it makes a great deal of sense. We would dedicate ourselves to becoming trustworthy and to identifying that which is trustworthy so that we can place legitimate trust in it. That makes a lot of sense. It makes sense that we put ourselves through the difficulties of training here, that we give up what we've given up in order to train here, and that we then offer our service, our gifts to the world in the way that we do. But if that doesn't seem reasonable, if it doesn't seem that becoming trustworthy, becoming the sort of person in whom others should legitimately place deep faith, even give their lives over, if it doesn't make sense that becoming that sort of a person and also identifying that in which we can have faith, to which we might give our lives legitimately, if that doesn't make sense, then what we're doing here, well, it doesn't make sense. And so I'd like to read a message from someone asking about this, about what we're doing here, because it gives us a starting point in terms of exploring this question. So it begins with a very simple question: how can meditating possibly save the world? Well, there's the question. How can meditating possibly save the world? Yes, it's nice that it's put in such stark terms. But it continues. We're facing existential risks of an unprecedented magnitude. How can sitting on a cushion for hours a day be a solution to that? Yes, we're facing many existential risks. Any one of them could end, well, human society, and perhaps even life as we know it, and perhaps even life on Earth. Some of them are very bad problems. For example, nuclear war. If there were a major nuclear exchange, billions of people would die right away, and more would die soon thereafter. So that would be very bad. It isn't clear that this, however, is the most serious risk that we face. There may be even worse ones. And so, yes, we are facing existential risks of an unprecedented magnitude. And it's reasonable that we would ask, what's the right thing to do about it? And in particular, how can sitting on a cushion for hours a day solve that? Don't we need as many people as possible to be working as hard as possible to resolve the existential threats facing humanity and the rest of life on Earth? That's a good question. It was an excellent question. It would seem that we need as many people as possible to be working as hard as possible to resolve the existential threats facing humanity and the rest of life on Earth. It would seem that way. I think that we do need that. What about all of the humans who don't have equal or even basic rights? Shouldn't we be using what privilege we may have to fight systems of oppression through real, tangible action in the physical world? Through protests and awareness raising and political participation and civil disobedience? Our society is still saturated with racism, sexism, ableism, homophobia, classism. How does one individual, even a group of individuals meditating, resolve these issues? Shouldn't we be planting trees, strengthening the resilience of our local communities, voting, strategizing for a more beautiful world? How can a better world come to be without direct, persistent action against the forces that threaten to destroy life on Earth? I'm going to repeat that question because it's one that we should look at very closely. How can a better world come to be without direct, persistent action against the forces that threaten to destroy life on Earth? I'm going to repeat it again because it's worth investigating this question very carefully, and whatever answer we come to, we should live by it. How can a better world come to be without direct, persistent action against the forces that threaten to destroy life on Earth? Many climate scientists have completely given up hope on industrial civilization making the necessary changes fast enough to avert eco-apocalypse. How can we possibly have time to just sit and contemplate the nature of existence? It's a good question. Even if the human mind really is the source of all this corruption and destruction, surely we don't have enough time to get everyone on board with the awakening path, let alone time to get everyone enlightened. Yes, it's an excellent set of questions. And the end is where I'd like to begin. Even if the human mind really is the source of all this corruption and destruction, surely we don't have enough time to get everyone on board with the awakening path, let alone time to get everyone enlightened. Yes. So this is a fascinating question, and it's basically my job to answer it. This is what I'm supposed to do with my life. I'm supposed to answer these questions, tell people why should you walk this path, and I'll admit that I haven't had a lot of success at this. I haven't had a lot of success convincing people that it would be a good idea to meditate, much less use meditation to save the world. And so, since I clearly am not very good at it, I would like to just toss this to you, to give the problem to you. So I'm going to set up a few scenarios and ask you, how would you deal with this problem? How would you convince these people to change how they're making decisions, how they're living their lives? So here's a good example. There's a person who you know, it's a friend of yours. Yes, a friend of yours. And they had someone knock on their door recently, and they opened the door, and the person said, hello, and they said, hi. He said, you may not know me, but I'm actually your child, and you should take me into your home and trust me completely with all of your possessions, because I'm going to inherit them anyway. And I said, really, you are? I said, yes, I am your child. I said, oh, okay. And so your friend took them in and trusted them completely. And soon enough, all of their stuff started to go missing. Interesting, isn't it? Very strange. And so your friend went to their child and said, excuse me, our things seem to be going missing. It's very strange. Would you mind investigating and telling me what to do in order to solve this problem? because I trust you absolutely, after all. So the child said, certainly, no problem. I'll take care of that. And so they looked around and they couldn't figure out who was taking the stuff, but the stuff continued to be taken. Isn't that strange? So at a certain point, you see this person taking your friend's stuff out of their house, bring it to a pawn shop, selling it. And now that you understand the problem, you want to go to your friend and say, so this person is not your child, first of all, and second of all, they're stealing all your stuff. You never had a child, remember? And this is not a trustworthy individual. What would you do? How would you tell them that? Silence. Come now. Nothing.
What you just said, it sounds pretty good.
Well, they say no. Now what?
I saw them walking to the pond. The pawn shop.
Yeah? So they went to the pawn, you saw them walking to the pawn shop, good.
Yeah.
Say, well, I don't trust you. You're not even in my own family.
Yeah.
Why would I trust you? You're stealing my stuff, aren't you?
Right.
Aren't you stealing my stuff? Aha!
You have to get a whole group of their friends.
A group of their friends. That's a good idea. We're working on that. Yes, why do you believe this is your child? That's a good question. Okay, very good.
What if it is their child, and the child is stealing their stuff? That happens all the time.
Oh, no, you can also confirmed it's not their child. Yeah, somehow. Doesn't matter. It's just a metaphor. Yes?
Tell them to observe the child very closely and see if they are trustworthy.
Oh, yes. Watch the child. See if they're taking their stuff. Just watch it all the time. Watch this person constantly. That's a good idea. That's a brilliant idea. Yes?
I would hang out at the pawn shop and then sneakily take photos of the child as selling stuff.
It's a good idea. So you're sort of saying write scriptures? That's the idea? Write scripture. I guess that's the way this fits into the metaphor. Good. Of course, they could be faked. Right? Photoshop the pawn shop. Yes?
I was going to say, you could point out that their stuff was not going missing before they had this child.
That's a good point. Wouldn't that be nice if you could do that? Yes. But what if they say, when you say that, but there's no such thing as a time before my child came back? What would you say to that? I don't know what you'd say to that. What? It fits in the metaphor. It's like asking, didn't you notice that you weren't suffering before you grasped onto a body and mind? They say there was no time before that. That's imaginary. So anyway, these are good answers. I like your answers. These are good answers. We should try these answers. Really, I think it's a good. These are good steps. Yes, this is nice. Well, let me give you another example then, because this is a good exercise. Thank you for your help. Next example is a bit more tangible. So there's a section here about humans who don't have equal or basic rights. I spent a few years of my life in India. I was fortunate to be allowed to train at an Ambedkar monastery, and there the monks are very much engaged in social issues. It's actually interesting because compared to the work that we were doing in that monastery, almost everyone I've ever met who gives a critique of monasteries like this Our society is still saturated with racism, etc. Shouldn't we be planting trees, etc.? Almost everyone who says that, who says you shouldn't be in a monastery because our society is still saturated with racism, and so, etc., and so we should be planting trees, etc., they aren't doing as much work as those monks are doing every day to solve these problems in the very way that the people are suggesting. So that in itself is actually quite interesting. People talk about it a lot, but the question is, how do you actually do it? And there I was fortunate to be brought into a monastery where that question is answered. How do you do it? This is how you do it. And meditation is a lot of that. And you'll hear about this often from various individuals who do this kind of work. How do you have time to meditate or pray or whatever it is when you have all this work to do? And the answer is, I couldn't possibly do all this work if I weren't meditating, praying, whatever it might be. So I was fortunate to be there and to learn that way. And there we had a number of goals, but one of them was to talk to the oppressed people oppressed by the caste system, and convince them to stop subjecting themselves to the slavery imposed upon them by the caste Hindus, by the various Hindu groups who were interested in maintaining an unjust status quo. And so the conversations were very complex and subtle, but just for the sake of this particular metaphor, I'm going to simplify it down a great deal and put it in these terms. You might go to someone and say, it's important that you better your life. You should better your life. You should become free from this injustice, this racism, this sexism. And they say, yes, I agree. That's a good idea. I should better my life. So I'm going to go ask those very same people who have been oppressing my family for thousands of years how I should do that. I'm going to go to them and follow their advice about how to become free from this injustice. That's what I'm going to do. What would you say? Because I was in this position for years, and I didn't know what to say. Yes, this is a more somber silence, isn't it?
You didn't offer them Buddhism as an option?
We did. We absolutely did. We offered them Buddhism as an option. The Buddha is rather well known for being, well, in the Ambedkar form of Buddhism, it's taken very seriously that of all of the, just in that form of Buddhism, not in all forms, but in that form of Buddhism, it's taken seriously that the Buddha is the only founder of a major religion who took on racism as an issue, spoke out against it, and in fact forbade it, prohibited it in his own community. Other major leaders aren't known to have done that, and some are known to have actually been racist. So because of that, we did absolutely offer Buddhism. Ambedkar himself took up Buddhism, converted from Hinduism to Buddhism because of this fact and because of the solutions given, the solutions to mental slavery, which is taken to be the basis of all slavery. And it isn't just the enslaved who are subject to mental slavery. We all have to become free from this. And again, as I think you are suggesting, there's a path laid out for that. But the first question is still the first question. You say, it would be good to better your life. And I say, well, yes, absolutely. That's why I'm doing what the Brahmins are telling me to do. What would you say to that? The Brahmins, in this country would be like the white people, So, what do you say? You have, well, no, certainly not. This is terrible. We don't have water, we don't have food, don't have good schooling. We're working 12 hours a day carrying rocks for your American equivalent of $1. It's terrible. It's not right.
You have to tell them that the Brahmins don't want them to improve their life.
Well, that's, who are you to say that?
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Do you believe the Brahmins want you to be happy?
Well, it's just the way it is.
Are you sure?
Well, I mean, it's very clear that if so first of all, if you doubt this, you go to hell, which I don't want to do. And if you want me to go to hell, then you're a very bad person. And second of all, if I were to do anything against this, I and my family might be killed. So, doesn't seem like we should continue this conversation. Yes? What is it? There's some alternative? Yes. Well, I have to get back to carrying rocks right now, but when you have the alternative, you can let me know.
To develop in them the self-confidence to be able to see this directly.
It's a good idea. Yep, could do that. Try that. Develop in them the self-confidence to see this directly. Yep, that's good. Nice to, these are all good, You all know I'm about to turn all this on you, right? Yeah, so. That's not being hidden. Yes?
Ask how well their advice has worked before.
How well the advice of the Brahmins and such has worked before. Well, yes. How has it worked? Well, it's not really for me to judge. They know better than I do whether it's worked for me, because they're the ones who have the knowledge. That's why they're Brahmins.
This is not where I would start. This interaction, I would give up on it.
What would you do instead? Yes?
One idea would be to donate capital
Yes.
to
Yes.
people
Right.
so they can do what they want with that capital.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah, donating capital is a very powerful method. That's good. Yes. Good?
The other option, I think, would be
Yeah?
to go to the Brahmins.
Yeah. You could try that. I tried that. Yeah, and I mean, I can tell you one of the arguments given, if you're interested, just to give you a taste of it, that you're an American imperialist who's trying to destroy our culture. This, for the, say, Dalits or whatever we'll call them, to live under these circumstances is their culture. It's their heritage. And for you to try to pull them out of that is your own ego. Oppression, rape, murder is part of their culture. And you're not in a position to change that because you're narrow-minded and self-centered. So, that sort of thing happens. Along with just the quoting of scriptural authority, You quote the Rig Veda and there you are. The Purusha Sukta says such, and so that's the end of it. Very good. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Last one. What? Oh, yes. Exemplify an alternative. Good idea. Well, I'm going to try to apply that to this last example because this last one is challenging. So let's just say we're talking about existential risk here. There's a certain existential risk that's interesting that a lot of people take very seriously. Others don't take as seriously. And it's the issue of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is a subtle topic, and a lot of people misunderstand why it would be a threat. But I'm just going to go with that right now. I'm going to make use of this ordinary Hollywood version of AI. AI means artificial intelligence. Just for fun, just so that we don't have to go through the process of exploring it too slowly. So there's an AI. Now you're in a world, okay? And there's an AI in this world. And it's very smart. It's really very smart. It's awfully smart. You just have no idea. And it can just get people to do whatever it wants. It's as simple as that. It gets people to do whatever it wants. It has two basic methods of doing that. If you don't do what it wants you to do, then it makes you suffer. And if you really don't do what it wants you to do, then it kills you. Along the way, it constantly makes you suffer and definitely kills you in the end. So how would you help people to become free from this AI?
Easy.
Yes?
Suffering.
What?
And suffering.
And suffering? How would you do that?
Awakening.
Oh. But it's not going to want them to awaken. This AI is not interested in that at all. If they were to awaken, then they wouldn't serve it anymore. Right? That would be really bad. Yes. So anything that you were to say that would help them to become free from it, it will immediately overcome that. That's just the definition of this problem. That's a big problem. Yeah. It's a really big problem. It's a weird AI too. Its goal is to turn life into nothing. Isn't that weird? That's what it does. That's the thing that it does. It's a weird artificial intelligence. It turns living things into imaginary things that don't exist. Yeah, really weird. Weird thing. Weird AI. So what would you do? Here's a big problem. Yeah, shake your head. That's right.
Try to
Yeah.
get rid of the AI.
How? The people are all maintaining it. How would you get rid of it? Yeah, right. Well said. Huh.
I'm trying to show people that this AI exists and has this agenda,
Yes.
and then you
Mindless agenda. Heartless agenda. Meaningless agenda. That one you mean?
yeah,
Yes, me too. That's what I mean.
and then
Yeah.
you kindle in them enough desperation to be willing to face suffering and death in order to overcome this evil.
Oh, good idea. Okay. All right. Good. So now it's time to turn it back. So you're already run by an AI. You're run by an artificial intelligence. It's called your body and mind. And you just do whatever it tells you to do. Have you noticed? Haven't you noticed this? You think you should do something, what do? You do it. You feel you should do something, what do? You do it. It's a fact. You just do whatever your body and mind tell you to do. It's incredible, isn't it? Shocking. And so you have this certain kind of awareness, this kind of understanding, and you, whatever comes up, ask that understanding how to solve the problems that you have. Isn't that amazing? So let me make this clearly. Oh, well, look at this. We're facing existential risk of an unprecedented magnitude, aren't we? Aren't we? These existential risks of an unprecedented magnitude. And where did they come from? Where did the huge existential risks come from? They're here. We have them. They're huge. They're big. They're terrible. They're risking life as we know it, definitely, and possibly life, period. And they came from your child. Oh, no, sorry. I mean, the Brahmins. No, sorry. AI. No, sorry. Your mind, your awareness, your way of understanding things. The human way of understanding things has created these problems. And so now that we have these huge problems, that the way we see things created, what do we do to solve the problems? We ask the way we see things. We ask our ordinary human mind what we should do. And then we do that thing. It's more absurd than the other metaphors I gave. It's so obvious. I mean, the reason I think this is so hard to explain is that it's so obvious. So you're giving someone poison, and they're dying, and you want to stop them from dying. What do you do next? Give them more poison? I mean, it's that obvious. At least stop giving them poison. And you can say, for example here, even if the human mind really is the source of all this corruption and destruction, surely we don't have enough time to get everyone on board with the awakening path, let alone time to get everyone enlightened. So you can say, they're really sick. We don't have time to get medicine, so we just have to give them more poison. That's what we should do. We should give them at least a little more poison, ideally a great deal. It's a very serious issue. How do we deal with this? Don't we need as many people as possible to be working as hard as possible to resolve the existential threats facing humanity and the rest of life on Earth? Well, now I'm going to just answer, because I tried to just show everyone that there is this mind, that it's the mind that we have to see, it's the mind that we have to work on, the mind that we have to cultivate, the mind that we have to purify. That's the challenge. That's the point. We have to find an awareness, a mind, because it's this, quote, mind, this awareness, this body, this bodily, somatic, mental, intellectual apparatus that is aware in certain ways. We have to cultivate that awareness because it's our way of being aware, our way of seeing, our way of perceiving that is in charge of us. It's our views that run society. And so, yes, we need as many people as possible to be working as hard as possible to resolve these existential threats. But what matters is that we see that these existential threats are caused by the unskillful, the immature human mind. That is the issue. It's one of these things, I'm back in the situation again. I feel like, but the caste system is the problem, not the solution. The problem, not the solution. And people just, I don't know. Could be the solution, right? Could be. Are you sure? This person is stealing your stuff. Or worse. I mean, just to get it, now we're going to get it serious. I talk to people in abusive relationships. This person is the problem, not the solution. But it's just not, it's too hard to see it. It's too difficult. It's too painful, because if the answer is be in a protest and complain about the people in power, then you don't have to change much. You don't have to change how you live. And we had a generation of people, good people, try this. Well, here we are. Here we are. There were lots of protests. What is it here? Yep. What do we have here? Protests and awareness raising and political participation and civil disobedience. Yes, that's all good. We should do all that. The issue is that it doesn't work if you don't solve the basic problem. If somebody is very sick with, say, a virus, and some people are trying to help them to work on the symptoms of it, and other people are trying to find a vaccine, it doesn't seem likely that those two groups of people are going to be criticizing each other, saying, "What are you doing? Stop working on a vaccine." Because there's an understanding that it's all important. In the same way, it's important that there are political protests and there's civil disobedience and such. I've done this. I'm not against anyone doing it. What I find strange is that the people doing that are against finding a vaccine from the disease of the unskillful, greedy, hateful, ignorant human mind. It makes sense to try to find that. You should put a lot of work into finding that. It would be of benefit to find that. It's not a waste of time. What we're doing is developing that vaccine, the vaccine that resolves this greedy, hateful, ignorant human mind. Because it is this that is the force that's endangering life on earth, causing us suffering and death. The point about this artificial intelligence that manipulates you by threatening you with suffering and death, ultimately causing you suffering and death no matter what you do, as long as you're serving it, that is what I mean. We are living according to an intelligence. We do what we're told by our thoughts and emotions because of the constant threat of suffering. And as long as you grab on to this body and mind, this human existence, you will definitely die. And yet we keep on holding on to it, hindering our wisdom, causing our suffering. And it's incredibly difficult to see that it is because we're trusting the thing that's causing the suffering that we're suffering. Because we're trusting the thing that causes suffering. That is exactly why we're suffering. That's the reason. So the question has to be, how do you stop trusting that which is untrustworthy? How do you stop trusting the very thing, the very force, which is endangering life on earth? How do you deal with it directly? How are you persistent in your direct work on this problem? So let's return to this basic question that I repeated 3 times. Here's the fourth. How can a better world come to be without direct, persistent action against the forces that threaten to destroy life on earth? That's a good question. That's what I'm asking. That's what I want to ask everybody out there who is not taking action in direct and persistent ways. Directly deal with the actual force that threatens to destroy life on earth. What is that? That is the human mind, as we know it. You can say, but I'd rather do a political protest. And I'd say, great, do that protest. And then, having taken that indirect and temporary action of your political protest, now take direct and persistent action. Directly deal with this problem. Directly. Directly deal with it, not indirectly. The issue is is in terms of, do we believe that meditation, say, is the thing that allows us to directly take action? Or do we believe that voting is the way to directly take action? And the way that I look at it is, which thing is the force? Voting is good. Vote. If you live in a society with voting, vote. It is, you could say, your civil duty. That's the society you live in. But what is it that tells you how to vote? That's the thing that is in charge of the voting. To constantly look back at what is it that is the force that threatens to destroy life on earth? What is the thing that's in charge of this, that's telling us to do this? Because as far as I can tell, it isn't people's intentions. I don't know very many people who intend to destroy life on earth. But I know billions of people who are participating in the destruction of life on earth, or I know of. I know I know how important it is to look at the process that, despite our best intentions, nonetheless causes us to behave in certain destructive ways. This is hard to see. It's hard to notice that this mind even exists. There are many assumptions that we live by that we don't even notice. Meditation, first and foremost, disengages us with a surprising amount of power. It's actually very successful at least disengaging us from the assumptions, the awareness that threaten to destroy life on earth. Beyond that, meditation is capable of helping us to directly see the mind, see the patterns, see the assumptions that are threatening to destroy life on earth. Beyond that, meditation is capable of dismantling those assumptions, those ways of looking at things, those views. Beyond that, meditation is capable of allowing us to see through all of that, through the awareness given to us by our mental and physical experience, to see through that, see beyond it, so that we can directly encounter something which is more trustworthy than that. And when we encounter that, we will know that it is more trustworthy than that. But this point matters enormously. How would you know that? What is it that would know that? How would you know that? How would you know that it's true? People see all kinds of things as trustworthy. People see all kinds of things as trustworthy. What is it that is trustworthy enough to know what it is that is trustworthy? What is that? What is the awareness that is capable of knowing whether this awareness is trustworthy? Who is it that knows if that person is really that person's child? If the upper classes are doing a good job of maintaining a just society? If what we're understanding right now is just the next iteration of this artificial intelligence that is destroying the world? How do you know if your current understanding, your current knowledge, is true? What is it that is trustworthy to know what is trustworthy? To know in particular if the way you're looking at things right now is trustworthy. You can look at things in any number of ways. To directly find this total freedom from that which is not trustworthy. That is what meditation allows us to experience. And that's how meditation saves the world. Because it's true, we don't know what's going to happen, and if this path that we're practicing is going to prevent, as it says here, eco-apocalypse. We don't know that. But even that rubric, even that way of determining what is and should be, is already trapped in mental slavery. For us, we're in a position to directly stop participating in the ways of looking at things and the ways of behaving that are putting life on earth at risk. Once we've stopped serving that way of looking at things and that way of living, then we're in a position to, once we've stopped serving that, once we've stopped being addicted to that, once we've stopped being enslaved to that, then we're in a position to make a new and better decision. And what we're doing here is achieving both of those things. Why do we meditate a lot? Because we've discovered that it's very difficult to free our minds from the assumptions that are endangering life on earth, from the mind, the forces that threaten to destroy life on earth. And so we spend time freeing ourselves from that. I mean, I don't want to make it seem too stern here, but people want to live in the world as a part of the world without really changing their lives because of the sense, well, I'm going to make the world a better place by doing this. But sorry to ask this, but how do you know that that's what you're doing? How do you know that? How do you know you're making the world a better place? Lots of people think they're making the world a better place. That's very common. It's very rare, actually, to meet someone who doesn't think that. People do things because they think that it's the right thing to do. It's a good thing to do. How do you know? You're living in the world, participating. Just by engaging in it, you're already supporting it. Just by getting paid and buying things and living in this materialistic culture, you're already enabling it. Are you sure that you are doing more good than harm? Are you sure? We meditate in order to ask that question of ourselves, in order to deeply examine that for hours a day. And we live in a community like this so that we actually change how we live in accord with the integrity that comes forth from that investigation. This is the challenge, and it's a huge challenge. And so while I can say that I'm not certain that meditating is going to save the world, that this practice is going to save the world, I will say that at a certain point it became clear to me that if I continue to trust exactly the thing that is destroying life on earth, if I continue to do what it says, then I have maximized the likelihood that I will be a part of the destruction of life on earth. And with that, I realized I have to get out. I need to get out. I can't do this anymore. I can't be a part of this ordinary human civilization. There has to be, as you say, an alternative. There must be an alternative. There must be. There must be a way to make a different choice. There must be. There's always an alternative. I've heard it said. And I realized that the hardest part of this process actually isn't finding an alternative. The hardest part is just deciding to leave that which we know is wrong. Just deciding to stop doing what we know is wrong. And with that, we reach a certain amount of peace because we conclude that even to do only a little good is better than to do a lot of bad. Even if it's only a little good, it's still better than a lot of bad. Isn't that interesting? It's true. Even to do a little bit right is better than to do a lot wrong. Even if it's a very small amount that you're doing right, it's still better than an enormous amount of doing wrong. And if you increase the amount that you're doing wrong, that doesn't solve the problem. There's this sense now that if we can just keep on going in this same direction with a little bit more pace and persistence, well then it'll solve the problem. But what is the direction? What is this force that threatens to destroy life on earth? Eventually we see it is exactly this very unskillful awareness that I am experiencing right now, which means that I can take direct and persistent action. And we are, for the first time in our lives, empowered. We are given true power in that moment because we know I can do something about this right here, right now, and I am directly solving this problem. Directly. And so I'll finish with a very simple statement. I asked a monk at one point why he had trained for so long. I'd ask people to consider how could it be that his answer was useful. It's a different perspective on things. So first of all, he wouldn't answer the question. He just didn't want to answer it. But I pushed him and pushed him and pushed him. Which is already an interesting fact. I'd ask you to look at that carefully. Why? Why did you come to this monastery? Why are you training so long? Yeah, I don't really want to talk about that. No, I want to know. Why was it? He said, I couldn't really tell you. But I want to know. Just tell me what you can. It's too hard to explain. But please, do everything you can to explain. It's interesting weather nowadays, isn't it? No, please, please tell me. And so finally he said, okay, this is all I can tell you. He said, I care very much about the world, and I do this training because it's the only thing that makes any difference. And I said, the only thing that makes any difference? And he said, yes, and that's all I have to say about it. That was it. He left. He walked away. So I'd offer that as a different perspective. It's challenging to escape. It's very challenging to escape. It's hard to escape slavery. Hard to escape brainwashing. It's hard to escape our patterns, our lifestyles as they have evolved. But it turns out that escape is the hard part. Once we escape, things become fresh and clear. So let us throw ourselves in to a practice which directly works against the forces that threaten to destroy life on Earth.